It does blow my mind. So this is a large 3D printer, or gigantic.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the Mac podcast. Today I have an awesome person with me that I have met actually through LinkedIn and some of my own self-branding, but this guy owns over 50 units of multifamily real estate. He's freaking in LP positions in different areas around the Sunbelt region. He's also trying to solve the issue with affordable housing, which is super interesting to me, and we're going to dive deep into that. Guys, I'm with my buddy, Johnny Nelson.
Hey, Marc. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I love the topic. I love the topic of real estate, of the topic of affordable housing, and all things related to that. So, it's been kind of a journey for me, but I feel like I'm really finding my groove here. And like you said, diving deep into, social media. And then, of course, real estate is something that's kind of a new dynamic. So, the fact that you and I are connected is from that. And, the community is just growing.
Yeah, no, dude, I've been following you. You're grinding out there in the LinkedIn space. We're LinkedIn buddies. So it's a community that I think we're building on there. Positivity. Yeah. I love that. I just love that platform for what it, you can get a lot of value from it. You don't need to spend millions of dollars on courses. You can just literally start jumping on LinkedIn every day and learning.
Absolutely, man. And you can, there's specialties out there. It's just astonishing the kind of level of expertise that people have developed and that they're selling. And you will find something so specific for your, some unique or weird need that you have in the business or beyond. And that's the kind of thing that I get a lot of value on or from as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, cool, man. What's your story? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you do for fun? You got to tell me a little bit of who Johnny is.
For sure, man. For sure. My story. So my family moved up to Alaska when I was a teen, and we started building homes, mainly custom homes, but some spec homes as well, some light commercial. I got tired of that after, maybe 10 years or so, and I decided to become a mechanical engineer. And we can talk about that more or less, but I think we'll focus more on the real estate side. But I actually didn't even think I was smart enough to become an engineer at the time. And eventually just kind of started online, and it just kind of led me to actually ending up here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where you live currently. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, maybe, just to say that for the audience. And but anyway, I decided to go back to school, went to UND, got my degree. I was able to pull it off. And I did that for another 9 years or so. And at the tail end of that, my wife and I started real estate investing, and it was basically just, I overheard a buddy talk about it. Wow. And he's like, "Oh, a house hack." I'm like, "What's that? What's house hacking?" Like, I'd never heard of that, And we both had just gotten our master's degrees, her in HR, me in material science. And it was kind of like, well, what is after this? It's not that it was like almost like a letdown. Like, well, I guess you just keep working now, and you just kind of go the corporate route. And that's what kind of like led me to like consider like what are some other options out there, and I didn't even know about real estate. And then that one buddy said, my cubicle buddy's like, "Hey, I'm house hacking," and I'm just kind of like, that's the people wonder what was the seed, what was the initial seed of an engineer, done some other things that all of a sudden I started real estate investing. So if they want to know that the moment of the Genesis moment, that was it.
Yeah, jeez. So wait a minute, you got to take me back here. So how did you go? And just curiosity. How'd you go from you were a contractor for 10 years and then you moved into wanting to be a mechanical engineer? Right. That just doesn't seem to flow with me. Now that thinking about that, what's the mentality? What were you doing as a contractor? You were 10 years. Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah. I was like 17, 18. We just started building homes. So I was like, late 20s when I decided to become, go back to school basically. And I just always like admired what engineers did. I like machines, I like tools, and I think if you ask a lot of contractors, builders, carpenters, plumbers, a lot of us guys, gals too, but a lot more guys and gals, we just like tools. We like stuff. We like tools. We like devices, and I think that was kind of the underlying passion. Again, if we had to like drill down into it and find kind of the seed of why, what was the link between like being a builder, carpenter, blah, blah, blah. I had like a welding certificate, and I worked on boats and things like that. So, handy, and we installed our own solar panels and our own generator and battery system back in Alaska. We were off grid. So like all this like hands-on stuff in, the mechanical world, I think it was a really good match and fit. When I came back to school, In some areas, I was like an expert. It's like I knew all this crap. And a lot of people are like, oh, they never had seen this stuff before. They were whipping around me, left, right, and center with the calculus. But I knew like a lot of this practical stuff. I knew machines, bolts, all these kinds of things.
Really?
So I leveraged that advantage to myself when I went back to school.
Wow. Well, you're a lot smarter than that. So was it like a family business when you were building spec homes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So you were like, this is all like in high school and maybe
and like
after high school?
We wrapped up high school and like I come from a big family and there's like 9 kids, so I was like mid. So yeah, but they were still, in school. We mainly homeschooled, but basically wrapped up, high school and, we just kind of kicked it off and started real kind of more on the simple side of just service and, cleaning and, small repairs.
Yeah.
And it grew into, we worked for somebody else in town there. And then it grew into, a full service, contractor and we started doing, homes. We started leading the build on homes. So it was exciting. Yeah.
It's just like super like how you ended up becoming a mechanical engineer out of that. Like I said, I honestly, I did 1.5 years of mechanical engineering and it was like, I realized how not smart I was, or like I just couldn't sit there and draft a bolt or a fender and an airplane, and like I just wasn't like super interested. I thought you went and like built things with your hands, because that's what we learned in contracting. But like you kept going, you finished the program.
I did.
And do you practice at all anything from there today? I mean, I know we'll kind of get into the affordable housing piece of this, which is honestly like. That is the gold mine of this whole podcast, I think. So how long did it take you? Because I think it was like the best 8 years of your life or the worst 4.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they say in engineering?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. It was, I had a blast, man. I had a good time. Obviously, 28 versus 18, you're 10 years more mature. And, actually, I was leaving a little bit later than that, but yeah, about the time. So, early 30s. Yeah. It's kind of in that, because I kind of dabbled in it, but anyway, so you get the idea. I was more mature. I knew what I wanted. I stuck with it and I was able to, leverage past, a lot of past experience. And your question about, do I use that, that training, that education now? And the answer is absolutely yes. And something that most people say when you reflect on your education, whether it's an attorney, which has like a particular way of looking at things, an engineer, and there's another one that's kind of fundamental. I forget which one right now. Anyway, but you learn how to think. You learn how to think like an engineer, and that's what I walked away with. So yes, you can do the calculus and the math and the physics and the statics and all these different things here. And some people are stronger than me. They'll excel in certain fields, but really it's that you walk away with a certain way of thinking and looking at the world, and that's what I still walk away with. And that's what I still use today.
Wow, that's incredible. I use part of my contracting career. Everything evolves. Like I always talk like I learned the most from concrete, creating urgency in my life. I've created how to be perfect. You only get one chance with concrete. There's just things that you learn in all your skills through life that forms who you are today, and it's helped me a lot. And I think thinking as an engineer, you're a critical thinker. You solve technical issues, really. I mean, that's...
Yeah, if you look at someone like Elon Musk, obviously like maybe, you're sick of Elon Musk being in the news or whatever, but I mean, he really does take things down to first principles. Talk about like probably the most prolific and public figure that uses first principle engineering principles.
Okay.
It's Elon Musk.
Wow.
It's very impressive to watch. And that's kind of an inspiration to me, where you can actually go back to the core issues, ask fundamental questions, and try to come up with new solutions without just fitting within the confines of the box. Create your own box, create new solutions, ask unique questions, ask hard questions, and make sure you're answering it in a creative way. And I think that's what engineering fundamentally, the good engineers do. And there's obviously like all kinds of engineers, and like computational and designers and process engineers, all these different kinds of engineers. But fundamentally, good engineer is asking hard questions, making yourself think afresh about problems, and coming up with creative, efficient, cost-effective ways of providing solutions.
Wow. So who are you asking these questions to as an engineer? Like in your mindset, like obviously Elon, his goal is to make this earth, us live on our own, systems, whatever, no fossil fuels, whatever. And what questions is he answering? He's just trying to solve really big problems.
I think Elon has, basically, I think it's his perspective that he's grown up with, some of the literature that he's read, and I can't list off the books that he's read. I think those things just have influenced him. And he's realized kind of a business savvy and using first principles, and he's synthesized that to such a unique way of tackling when people said no and it's impossible. He's like, yes, this is possible. I can use first principles and arrive at some unique solutions. And that type of thinking, like literally again and again, he's created world-class companies tackling things that that people have said, other companies, other industries, other organizations said can't be solved, can't be changed. And, look, just like electric cars, again, a super simple one. You drive a Tesla, he led with that. And the German companies, the European companies, the American companies all said, no, we tried electric cars, can't be done. It's not cost effective. There's not, all this whole list of excuses. Yeah. And he proved them wrong, and, SpaceX, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
right.
Again and again. So that was the most clean answer, but that's what I have observed without, doing a full analysis of Elon. But we can still ask, we all have problems in our lives, and we can ask ourselves hard questions. And if people keep saying, this may be a good segue into like the affordable housing thing, how many times it's just like you could like do a Google search and say affordable housing crisis. I don't like to call things crises, but people say that again and again. There's literally thousands or millions of people, leaders, government agencies, industry leaders, small people, whatever, big people, saying we have a crisis, we have an affordability housing crisis. So like clearly people are concerned about it, they're thinking about it, and they're trying to find solutions, and they haven't yet. So that's the exact kind of problem that we want to tackle with this type of thinking.
Yeah, the affordable housing crisis, I mean, this is huge. This is probably worldwide, but for sure in the U.S., like it's a big problem. Like now you add up a 6.5, I seen the 40-year mortgages on the FHA come out, like it's just a Band-Aid, right? Like those came out, I think, back in the 80s too, and they didn't solve the bigger issue.
They pulled it, and then it was not the currently they're not, or they previous to what they just did, it was what they call a non-conforming loan. So that's why they weren't really servicing them.
Yeah,
so now they're, I think HUD allowed it to be a conforming loan, or the FHA, they allowed it to be, they basically put it in the designation category of a conforming loan, which kind of changed it. It's been there already, like you said, but the unique thing that they allowed us to be a conforming loan. So now you can get more traditional financing, and more banks can service that.
Gotcha. Because I think with the HUD you were mentioning, like on a commercial loan for an apartment, you can go get a 35 or 40-year AM on some of these loans. Like they're out there.
Yeah.
And if you can get a low enough interest rate, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just depends what they're going to make you do in order to keep that loan in place. Some have different setups, but the HUD setups that I've been in, it's like there's quite a bit of legwork to get one of those loans, and you don't want to just like, you're not going to refinance out of it quickly. And most of the apartment syndications that I see, it's all just retail type loans that are going through. But yeah, that's the affordable housing. The whole purpose of that is how to make it more affordable without just making everything smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
Cheaper and smaller. Like, so less quality and just more, like, if you want, you don't just like ramp up the junk machine, the junk factory. Like we could just like create, like literally you could do like wax coated, cardboard boxes. Like, oh, we created housing. Like, no, you just created garbage, and you didn't, nothing that people would want to live in. It's not high quality, and it's not sustainable because you're just like making a lot of stuff that's going to quickly degrade, So you have to, it's like high quality, more of it, faster output, less cost.
Well, let's talk about some of the options. Those are all good because there's a lot of garbage going on out there trying to make housing affordable, but it's not sustainable for the long period, like a traditional frame-built home, CMUs type built home. So, I mean, you got things like Boxable out there, right? Yeah. Like, and you're familiar with that model. Because I think this leads up into your model that, like, I think that is the future. Like, it's for sure sustainable for a long period of time. It's going to be affordable, and it's fast. And you can't usually get all three of those in the housing industry. So things like Boxable, I'd like to hear, like, because you probably have some knowledge on this and just like what they're building.
Yeah, I think Boxable is doing a great product. Actually, I like what they're doing. There's obviously Boxable. If people don't know it, they basically are creating factory built homes. They're steering away from using just more faster traditional built. So more faster traditional built, like people may ask, what does that mean? Like, well, using studs and plywood and drywall. Boxable is doing more panelized construction, tip up, hinge type of joints and fabrication of their wall structures or their wall assemblies, or extruded. I haven't seen a cross section in a while, but they were like kind of extruded type of panel. Insulation strong. The inside and outside is done, ready to go. Very, very efficient. And I like that. I think the future in certain areas will be a combination of 3D concrete printing, set in place foundations with modular or factory built homes. Now, factory built homes, that's not new. That's been around a long, long time.
Right. Yeah.
Just at a poor quality. So that's what we're trying to bump up that quality. And also there's just a limit of how many factories you can build, the kind of output that you need. Boxable has, I think, a 3-year backlog of a couple 100,000 units that people put a down payment are on, and they have orders for.
Wow.
They've said you're having massive success, but the demand is so huge that I don't care how much money or which one service provider or product provider that there is, they're overwhelmed. So there's a huge market and opportunity for not anyone, but many people that have even a little bit of creativity in their bones to like come up with a solution or an idea and to get out there and to try something. And a lot of people have tried things and there's been failures or mediocre results, but the technology has matured to a point where, again, you combine tip-up, panelized, factory built with like 3D concrete printing, and then you're really, really getting exciting and getting high quality habitations for human beings out there, at much less cost at a much faster rate.
Yeah, because these Boxables, I'm pretty sure when they get to the site, it's like hours and this thing's up.
Yeah, so they conveniently leave out the foundation part, as we both know, like as a concrete guy.
Just put it in the desert somewhere.
And just like, you just like throw it on a sand pad. Like, well, no, like you got to anchor the damn thing down. So that's something that obviously they don't emphasize because they don't have I'm sure they're working on it, and I'm sure there's some creative solutions out there, but Boxable doesn't emphasize it because they have their hands full. So we need more providers, more smart people working on various elements. When you niche down into something and you create a unique product, again, we're just speaking to like what the market that's available out there. There's so much opportunity. So if you want to like eat the whole elephant in one bite, you're probably going to choke. But if you can just take a chunk of it, like Boxable, and we're just working on the house, the structure, and then the roof, let somebody else handle the foundation, and then there's like the financing piece, and then there's the land prep, and all these other things here that people are just not really focused on with a vision. We're talking on a dream and a vision here to create a lot more housing much quicker for a high quality. So there's all these other pieces that you got to stack up to make that actual come to pass, because you can just get, you can just crank out, maybe and Boxable hasn't even cranked up their production yet. So like you can see the struggle. They've been in business for 3 or 4 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And they're hundreds of thousands of units behind. They're doing incredible work. There's a lot more room in the space, but think about all these other sectors of building a home that needs to catch up to what even what they're doing.
Yeah. Dude, someone told me that these Boxables, though, they're treating them like almost like a trailer house that goes down in value. Like they're putting them on rented land, and these things just kind of degrade a little bit quicker. Like this is just some of the stuff I'm hearing. Yeah. I've never even seen one in person. Yeah. I don't, but I've seen or heard some podcasts that just are talking about these things. They're not going to go up in value. Just they're not real estate. It's like a modular type trailer house, and it's likely that they degrade quicker than a normal conventional built house. I don't know how true any of that is, and I think it probably comes down to the foundation, and I don't even know how big some of these are. If they can be 1,000 square feet or 1,500.
I think they're like 800 square feet, something like that.
Okay, so it's kind of like a tiny home, mid-sized tiny home.
Tiny home is like 400 to 500 square feet. Even less than that. Like that's like what a tiny. So this is like twice, but it's still a very modest structure. But so I think that people are going to have to get used to, and this maybe I'll get some flack for this. Accept until the industry ramps up a smaller residence. But I mean, I have my building, one of my buildings in Minneapolis is all studios, and they're average around 400 square feet. So,
Wow.
I mean, no one calls their studio or a single bedroom, a tiny home, which is like it's simply like you can live in there comfortably.
Yep.
And it's clean. And if it's built right, if the development is right, if you have other amenities that maybe like you can like pool amenities, like there's a common garden or a common pool or a common clubhouse for a gym, things like that, and you make like 40 homes, which is actually a project we're working on in Washington State, then you can actually, then it becomes really interesting because you can have like these, you're sharing the costs.
Right.
You don't need everyone doesn't need a garage. So again, like what are just some ideas? We don't want to wait 10 years, Mark, to like, when we finally get it all figured out, the land is perfect, the financing is perfect, the building technology is perfect.
Yeah.
People need homes now. So that's something else is really I'm very passionate about. It's like, I don't want solutions 5 years from now. I want to have something that's mature right now that we can put together, put in place. And, so that's financing, that's land, that's development, that's the building, that's the longevity, all these different things, so absolutely the compromises will be made and everything will not be optimized. But again, there's so much technology, there's all these technologies that are there. There's tons and tons of money that people are ready to throw at this, which has good side and bad side to it, because then people will be careless, there will be greed and corruption and other things like that. But the people that are doing it right, I think there's an opportunity to create a lot of homes for cost effectively for high quality.
Yeah, I can vouch for that too. It's like you can't get affordable like cheap, fast, and good. You can only get two, and so if you want a really quality custom home, Boxable, like you can order it and it'll be here in 3 years or whatever. Yeah. If you want a custom built house, it's going to take probably 6 months of planning, another 6 months, maybe longer to build the thing, and it's going to be very expensive. But I think it's just what you want. What's your expectations from this? And in affordable housing, I want to talk about more about what you're doing, because I think that honestly, even it's fast, it's good, and it's cheap. It's really almost all three, right? Like, and it's going to be there for a long time. Like the 3D printing, and I'm not even I love concrete. Like this is like my passion to like talk about concrete, yes. But when you mix concrete and real estate together, man, I get super excited about this. So what is it and how do you see it? Like, have you used it yet, or what's your future like what is it, first of all?
Sure. 3D concrete printing is, I guess we're going to rely on the audience's knowledge of anything they've seen on YouTube or maybe in their own home.
They've never seen any of that. You're starting from ground zero.
Ground zero.
No one's seen this ever.
No one's seen. So like you can buy a 3D printer off of Amazon for a couple $100, right? Like just a small.
That's like wax. That's what you were talking.
Yeah, like polymer.
Polymer. Okay.
You can make small like figurines, Baby Yoda. If you watch The Mandalorian, small cranes, small action figures, just junk. You can just maybe useful things, but that technology has come down. So that same type of concept scaled up massively. So instead of printing a small toy or a candle holder or something like that, envision this 40 times that size, and you're printing a actual house that somebody could live in. So it's just simply a thing of scale.
How do you draft? Like, I know you're a mechanical engineer, so you've probably drafted some of this. Like, how do you, like, even the Baby Yoda thing, like, do you just find Baby Yoda on the 3D printing world?
So let's go from we're doing high level abstraction here, but let's go down to actual practical. So there's like sites out there like called GrabCAD, and people around the world just love drafting. So there's already like these little models for SolidWorks and AutoCAD and 360. These things are already done. Like you could go out and download something that someone else has already done. Some people are very creative and they can design, and they like to design their own things and customize it. So that's just like these small components or medium-sized components. You could do a shoe or a desk. I mean, all depending on the size of your printer. So there's tons of stuff already out there. All these models are already done.
Yeah.
But there's also large scale products as well. House size projects. And a lot of times people use AutoCAD or Fusion 360 for some of these larger ones. There's some free software out there. Especially AutoCAD has kind of been the traditional one, but there's others. But anyway, so you're using a program to create, some representation of a product that you want to see.
Gotcha.
And then you run it through a compiler, which basically translates the software, what you drew, into code. and then the large machine or small machine, it could be either way, prints it, whether it's plastic, rubber, wax, whatever it is, out this nozzle. And, if you have the right machine with the right program, with the right drawing and the right, supply of whatever the material you're going to print with, basically you're what they call additive manufacturing. It's not there. You have a pile of sand, a spool of filament, and it melts it or extrudes it or it mixes it, and you basically squirt it out in a pattern, and it's it's going to hold itself up in a the right shape, and you start building it. You go from nothing to something that actually has a structure.
Wow. So, which I really like, because you referred to, there's guys online that are building house drawings. You can go
All
anywhere, and so really you're just taking these drawings and you're having a CAD guy. You would buy a house plan from him that you like, and it's been proven many times to be this amount of cost or this amount of yards of concrete, I suppose, in this case, because it's all about the material, right? Like the polymer must cost something, I suppose.
Yep. There's a cost to all the material. There's so many different areas. Again, we want to keep this like high level and, just the audience get an idea. The more specialized the material, let's focus on the concrete, there's very special additives and mixes and proprietary manufacturing or manufacturer's product they want you to use. The better manufacturers out there of the machines they allow you to use just like Super Sack or just a concrete mix from Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards or whatever. So that's what you want to use. But yes, the cost of the raw material, of course, greatly influences the cost of the final product. That's pretty obvious, but just to say that.
Well, and it's got to be, even with the polymer, if we're building baby out or if we're building a house out of concrete, your waste has got to be pretty minimal.
That's a huge thing. So typically
just the efficiencies of this.
Yeah. So think about all the trucks that go into a job site, and as both of us as former builders or current builders, you're current, I'm not. All the trucks we send in with all the wood and the concrete and the bags and all the things that will turn into waste or garbage, we cut up the wood and we use the sacks and we throw away the boxes and all this kind of stuff. And then we send typically it's 10 to 20 trucks out of all I think it's about half of what you send in gets sent back to the landfill. Not because you're just frivolously or stupidly wasteful, just because there's just so much waste in the packaging and the extra stuff, the extra material that you don't need. A lot of it gets trucked out. So that's wasteful. So you're sending stuff in more than you need. You're sending a ton back out to the landfill. That costs time and money. All these things.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly, that is a great point. Is how can we minimize the waste? Just mix it up, send in a super sack of concrete or multiple super sacks of concrete. You add water and you have a machine, and it's much more material efficient of what you need to create. So
I love concrete. My dad would lose his mind if he knew there was 10% headed back to the landfill. But yeah, it does blow my mind. So this is a large 3D printer, or gigantic.
Yeah.
Because this thing is basically like a pump truck on site.
It is, yeah.
But it's ran with electronics or whatever the CAD file is.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah, so you find let's keep this. Let's start out with the two major styles of machines out there. The one is the gantry style, and that is simply a large frame. So envision it has 4 posts at the corner of your building. Let's just pick a size of building. Let's say it's a 20 by 20. So your machine will have to be larger than that, because obviously it's you can't be. You have to be. The machine has to be larger than where you're printing. So let's just say your machine is a 30 by 30 square. So it's going to be a 30 by 30 square, and it's going to be like this grid, this framework. Basically you're setting up like a telescopic frame. And there's 4 corners, and then there's connecting rods above, or connecting beams essentially above, and then your printer head moves along within that whole entire profile. It can go left, up, down, forward and backwards, and left and right. So basically you can get to anywhere within that square envelope. You have your build space.
Wow. Right? Okay.
That's the
a standard 3D printer, I would imagine. It's kind of the same way.
Yeah, it's obviously, again, but we're large scale here.
Really big, yeah.
Instead of like a plastic and sheeting and things like that, we're talking like large, like columns, typically made out of aluminum tubing to keep it lightweight. Okay. But anyway, so, that's the one style. The other style is the robotic style, the robotic arm, where you oftentimes, and this is not, you don't have to, but oftentimes you have your pad board and you drive on there with a robot. with a tracked crawler essentially, and it has a robotic arm. And the robotic arm is attached to, both of these things are still connected to a pump with a hose, and you still need to like print out whatever material you're doing. So you'll drive to the middle or wherever it is of your slab, as far as your concrete arm can reach, and you'll start printing. So that's the other style, and they can just keep, go in the zone that it's in, and just keep, every time you make a pass, and it goes up another inch or whatever the layer height is, and you make another pass, etc.
Wow. That sounds...
Those are the two major styles. You have the crawler. Robots style, and you have the gantry style. They're still ultimately controlled by the software of the program that you created.
Wow. So one of those sounds way more efficient than the other one. With and I didn't know what side is the gantry? Is that what you said? Is the one with the cranes over top?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is what?
The crawler robotic arm.
Crawler robotic arm. That sounds much more efficient to me.
They're
you can
much smaller.
Yeah, right. It sounds like you can go behind a pickup with that thing.
You can. There's a company out of Florida called Apis Core, and that's what they're working on. But they're hacking through. Not how. That's probably a better term would be. Refining the technology. Let's go with that. Refining the technology, and they've had some problems, but they're getting much better. Like there's multiple companies around the world that are getting Cybe out of the Netherlands is another one doing really excellent work. Apis Core out of Florida is doing excellent work. They're still working through a lot of issues, but their machines can print and can make a house or a shed or whatever. I mean, there's a limit to the size. Like if you can't go up 4 stories, with a robot that fits behind a pickup.
Right.
But I don't have like the specs in my head, of course, but
no,
a robotic crawler that would fit in a good sized trailer behind a pickup could print an 8 foot high wall. So residential style, 8 foot, 9 foot high wall in residential construction. That's what our focus is. Yes, there's like sheds and there's like storage and there's like commercial and there's all these other applications.
Sure.
You gotta confine what you're going to focus on here. And these other the large gantries can do these other things, and you can get take on these other sectors. But again, our focus has just been like keep the blinders on. This is what, the affordable housing is. Obviously it's not commercial. It's not self-storage. It's not storage sheds, So yeah, just that is the real need.
Affordable housing. Yeah. No, it's, the sheds thing and that, I mean, that is what it is. I think if it would work good if the thing's still there on site, but these are concrete. It's obviously going to be heavy. You can't just transport these buildings. Like it's there. Yeah. And man,
quick to that one. There's some advantage. People will do, modular prints. So you can actually, because the environment has a big factor on, again, we're drilling into focusing on some of the problems, some of the advantages of 3D concrete printing.
Yeah.
Obviously the environment, if it's like 0 degrees, you and I both know concrete does not like 0 degrees. Or if it's like pouring rain, again, concrete will be very
North
unhappy.
Dakota, we can do it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. No. Yeah.
So then people will print sections of homes or sections of, architectural ornamental type of elements inside a warehouse or a garage, and then you'll do a heavy lift and you can actually put it in place, or you can do a combination of both. Yeah. So there's like lots of when you start thinking about like, oh wow, like I never thought about that, like these kinds of like practical issues like the weather, but then also like I can print on site, and then I can actually if I have another printer, be printing off site and maybe combine it. So maybe that's how I would get to my 2-story house. Maybe I'd do like the first story, on site. And then I do, another like half story that I did in my warehouse, So like, again, like there's lots of iterations you can do that are just dying for people like Mac Construction to come along and do some creative process and put something unique together.
Well, I'm thinking like 6 projects I could use this on like right now. I'm thinking like the crane style overhead. Yeah. You got this 30 by 30. Man, I could wrap that thing in blankets and keep the weather out of that probably fairly easily.
Yeah. So you want to just assume a tent, and like once you have it, the environment controlled, at least somewhat. Yeah, you can do a lot of good damage in there. Yeah.
Right. I would totally use that for freaking a project and just keep going all winter long, because that when you can only work freaking 7 months of the year, it's challenging.
Yeah, you're tenting in northern and colder climates or super wet climates. You're tenting anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So. And so what do these bad boys cost? Like, how do I get my hands on a few of them?
$1,000,000.
$1 million bucks.
$1 million, yeah.
So what would $1 million bucks buy me? It would come with the crane style and
Yeah, the gantry style would come with the
gantry. I gotta learn that word.
Yeah, that'd be. I think I'm trying to think of the profile. I think that was a 20 by 40. I think that was that style was a 20 by 40 by 15. I think it was. Don't quote me on those numbers, but something like that. So, modest size structure. And then of course you can move it. There's nothing that says you can't print one section and let's just say like your high loft storage or whatever.
Yeah,
you can do like 2 bays or something like that, or 1 bay, and then if you have maybe pour a track and then you move or shift the whole machine down another 20 feet, then do another section like that. If that's efficient enough for you,
yeah,
that's an idea. That's a possibility.
You just gave me an idea to make 3D concrete printing in storage. I like that. Yeah, because it's all about speed, and I love storage.
Lowering waste, freeing up your crew. Doing it more efficiently, super strong, wind and fire. Fire is a big one. I know that's fire isn't such a big deal here, but let's just talk about like California or Colorado, that massive fire in Colorado. I know we're just kind of going all over the place. But it's fun. They had a massive fire near Denver, I think it was Boulder. Oh, no, near Denver. And there was over $1 billion of damage, and obviously we've seen devastating fires out of California. Yes, if you do your roof out of something combustible, your house can burn down. But if you do more of it than less out of something non-combustible, maybe do a steel roof and then 3D concrete walls, hey, you're not going to burn down. Right.
Well, I'm thinking just like, I can order a lot of concrete. Concrete's like $140, $50 a yard around in my area. And I'm thinking like, it wouldn't take that many yards to build walls. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I could just keep this thing busy every day. And then like my concrete guys would be pretty happy because they love pump trucks and laser screeds now. So we love technology. That's like one of my, that's in my mission statements. So how do you build a roof with this thing? How do you put electrical? Like I'm thinking some of the trades that got to go through a home or like slapping drywall onto these concrete walls now.
Yeah.
Like unless... Yeah, so just tell me like somehow the trades the drawback.
That's why we are doing our first project with Mudbots. Actually, I'll just mention the name. So we're working with Mudbots out of Utah, and we are agnostic to the technology, but they just have a really good training program. Just like there's a lot that we like about them. There's another company out of New York, Black Buffalo, that's awesome. Like I said, Apis Core out of Florida. They're doing amazing track machine. And the biggest manufacturer in the world with the most units or machines out there, and these are just machine builders, right? They're not necessarily they're not making homes. They're machine.
They're
builders.
Just making the machine.
Just like Schwing makes pump trucks, something like that. Like they're not out there pouring your concrete,
Got it.
And we know that like Quikrete is like making the concrete,
Yeah.
So that's so the different manufacturers, different companies will focus on different sectors of this. So these machines that we're going to buy, like you said, how much would it cost to get your hand on a machine is like $1 million. So like that's that's a really rough average, but like that's kind of what it would come down to. So remind me of your question. I forgot where we're going to that.
Well, I just want to know like some of the problems. Like this sounds great to me. Yeah. I mean, like a pump truck's $1 million nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I can get this 3D printer and I can get it to build some homes, obviously it blocks out for the windows. Does it do anything for the electricians? Does it do anything? Does it build a roof? Like
typically not. Not yet. And I think that's where there's opportunity to do something creative in the roof space. But this is so now we're going to talk about the nitty gritty. So a lot of people just print. They'll just print a home and then they don't actually finish as they go. Other companies like Mudbots advocates for like finishing as you go. So you have to have, you can have more people getting a lot more done than you're used to. So this is where really contractors are going to have to shift the paradigm of how they build. It's like, the framer is going to do frame, then the siders are going to frame, side, and they're going to the drywaller, and then the insulator. Of course, that's not the right sequence. Framing, and then insulation, and then or framing and electrical, and then plumbing, and then drywall like that. You just go from the inside out, So a lot more happens, at one time. So you're going to need your electrician and your plumber like on site, or unless you have your own crew really dialed in, and you have like a laser and like they put in the box. Like you can cut it in later, but like it's optimal to do it at the time.
The concrete gets hard.
We know that concrete will get hard. So it's better
don't want to cut your boxes in late. So make sure I like that.
Yeah. So it's like you're going to be like I think people are going to be surprised and astonished, and there's going to be people that are going to go one way and then like, oh no, I got the technology. I just cut it in later. Like, well, go for it. I think the best way is to actually do it at the same time. So people are the contractors or the electricians, for example, are running their wires. They're going to drop the wires in as you're doing it, or you do it to a certain height, then you stop, and then they drop in some wiring and some plumbing, things like that. I think that's the best way. That has really kind of been. No one has really found. I haven't seen necessarily a rock star way of implementing that yet, but that's kind of what I've seen work the best right now. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's the best way, that will be the ultimate best way, but that's what I've seen right now to work fairly well, is kind of a concurrent approach of, as you're building walls, you're doing other work,
Right.
the other subs at the same time. They're going to play nice. So there's a lot of diplomatic things to work through and timing and other things like that. But I mean, guys, like if you can get, the walls done and the plumbing, the electrical done in, let's just say, 72 hours,
That's
huge.
That's what it takes to print a home.
Well,
that was my next question.
Much longer than that, because people don't tent. They have problems with the pump, and they haven't really dialed it in. So there's a lot of like technical things to work through of like pump consistency, like mud consistency, layer consistency, cracking. People just want to add water. Of course, add a lot of water, it's going to make a crack. So there's like a lot of like other issues to work through here, which companies around the world, contractors, developers are working through like right now. So I'm not saying like it's easy. It's going to be solved tomorrow. But actually, so right after our discussion here, I'm actually going over to UND to talk with one of the professors, associate professors, and the grad student.
Yeah.
About they actually just got are about to get a robotic printer themselves.
Oh,
so
cool.
So I'm going to go over there and meet with them after this.
Tell them to get one of them home printers, and I'll be the tester on it.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I got a good connection, like somebody that can actually put this stuff to work here.
Yeah. I'd love to try it. And what I love about concrete is that it creates urgency.
Yes.
Because the concrete's going to come. You only have so much time till it dries. I'd imagine this stuff comes in, it has to be a consistency that actually holds shape when it comes out of the pump.
like maybe 2-3 inch wide and maybe an inch tall is a typical build rate.
And obviously you got to finish, like say the exterior just wants stucco or some smooth finish.
Or you can leave it corduroy too. Like you can just leave it layer by layer.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people do. You don't.
Or I suppose you could coat it later if you want to do with
that can work too.
Whatever. So I just love that, like having the electrician. That's how we do it as builders right now. To get everything done in the shortest amount of time, you have to have people on each other.
Yeah.
Got a plumber, because the plumber wants to come in, then the electrician wants to come in, and then the HVAC guy wants to come in when the building's empty and done. It's like, not today.
Yeah, it's on your schedule, when you have a chance, when when it works for you, and then just the building timeline is just ticking away there, and we're just used to it. And we just accept that, and we're like as developers that are builders willing and ready to adopt new technology, we're gonna have to rattle some cages here and shift the way what expectations are.
Yeah, I like this even in the apartment game, because that just keeps everyone on site. You're printing it all the way up. I don't know how big or how this thing would work on an apartment gig, but I'm guessing it will hit the multifamily space.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's going to come up soon. I'm really excited about that. But again, just I've been confining myself to just like, hey, what can we do with this within the sector here? And there's going to be a lot of adjacent technologies and new developments, and other companies come out with these different and unique solutions.
Right.
Solutions. And then you're just going to just take advantage of those things when they come forward. Because people are working on this around the world, Mark. So it's really exciting space, and there's a lot of money being poured into it.
Obviously it's there to make things much more efficient, much faster. I mean, it's got to be. I don't know. Is there actual timing, like what it takes to build a house from scratch? Like they've done this, I'm guessing.
A few
to finish.
Not many. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's houses that are done, but they've taken 2-3 months to 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah,
Wow.
because they had so much problems getting the mud right, and they'll do it and they'll knock it down. They'll do like a foot or two, and they'll start having problems. The weather changes and they'll start have cracking, and they'll have the pump will plug up, and like all these things will actually happen within the space. So there's like almost an innumerable amount of like little snafus that can hang up the crew. So that's why the training, like for some companies, is very intense and very deliberate, and they want you to set you up for success.
Right.
So that's why I mean, like, you can do it. You could get your own printer and hack through it for a couple months with a team, but just expect that. I guess I just like to say that to the audience. Expect a hard, gritty, unpleasant training experience of a couple of months before you get proficient.
Gotcha.
Just different. That's probably just a good word to throw out there for you, whether it was you or some other developer. Like, just like, that's the kind of money you have to set aside for your main operator. They'll have to be kind of technically minded, running, a computer and CAD, and there'll be like a main guy kind of making sure the print is going well, and some other things like that. So like a different skill set, but not outside of what most people that are under 40 have their skill sets. Like, they're good with computers. Maybe they've done CAD work. They can run a compiler. They know, there's those kinds of technical skills, and knowing about, like, rheology, or like the flow of concrete and some other things like that. That's the kind of skill set. You're going to need less people eventually, but just more. They're going to have a higher set of technical skills.
So if you're a 16-year-old kid out there right now, go get into 3D printing and learn everything there is about it, because in probably 5 years, it's going to look completely different, and you're going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And that would be my advice today.
Yeah. If you like construction, if you like building stuff with your hands, but then you're also kind of technically minded, there's a limitless opportunity, whether it's this technology or some adjacent, technology or process that will come up that we're not even talking about right now.
Wow. So what is like the price of like a finished home compared to a regular conventional but affordable house, conventional build, I should say?
So we got to be honest here. So it's actually more right now. It's more. Our motto I didn't mention our company's name. It's House Now 3D, but our motto is half the price at half the time. So we want to deliver the equivalent house at half the cost and half the time. That's our goal. And I know it's ambitious, but we think we can get there with, by furthering this technology, investing in this technology, getting the right people on board. So that's our passion, and we think we can attain that. But the numbers that we've run in our rather simple spreadsheets,
yep,
we're seeing like a reduction of about a third. Now that's ignoring. So again, we're being frank here. We're having an honest discussion. That's ignoring all the crap and the mistakes and the plugged up pumps and the knockdown walls and all this kind of the hauling off of all the concrete as the crew gets proficient here.
Yep.
But once that happens, we're thinking we're going to achieve like a third reduction. So like 2/3 the price. Median price right now in America, and it's not the best at comparison, but just a number there is $428,000. So it's an incredibly amount of money. Like that's
your affordable house today.
Yeah, that's not that far away from $500,000.
Yeah.
And we want to deliver something comparable. And maybe 200,000. Think about the difference. How many people a brand new house that their mortgage? What would their mortgage payment look like for a brand new house? It's something around $200,000. We're not talking about junk. We're talking about high quality, probably on the smaller side, super durable, have high quality, longevity, well made, and it's fire resistant. It's more or less quite storm resistant. Whether it's in Florida or here, very very strong walls and concrete. And that's going to make a huge difference to a blue collar family trying to squeak by. Whether you just rent some junk, or could you get into something for a couple $100,000, and that's going to have the mortgage payment. That's where I really get passionate.
Yeah, I think like one market in particular is probably not North Dakota, but like Florida. I know they're in like the biggest crisis of all. Like the real estate there is just crazy. The amount of people moving there is crazy. So they got hurricanes. You got insurance premiums out the nose right now. You can't even conventionally build, I don't think, anything there. Everything's got to be CMU or concrete. So I just see like
termites.
Yeah.
Hurricanes, termites. It's like nature is rough on buildings down there.
Yeah, and I think that would be the first market that these things get really big in, just because of everything: termites, insurance, the humidity, everything there's got to be concrete anyway.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah.
And so I could see a few of these things starting to roll down there. Now, there isn't any, as of today, printing out houses every day.
Is there a company, or is that what you mean?
Is it just trial testing right now? Is that where we're at?
No, there's actual projects happening. There's a Habitat for Humanity house that up in New York. There's I think a Habitat for Humanity project in Virginia. I think they have 400 homes slated. I think they've done like 4 or 5. So they're actually completed.
Wow.
So like people, like there's emerging pockets of this technology getting used and being implemented and growing around the country. There's I forget their name. There's like 2 or 3 small groups in Florida, to your point, that have done a couple homes. Everyone has just done like a few homes, a couple homes. No one has really scaled up to the kind of numbers that we want to see.
Wow.
But what we know in this kind of any kind of emerging technology, you look across technology, it's like there's fits and starts and people trying things and failing and this, that, and the other. And it gradually grows and people become more proficient and get better and better and better at it. So that's what it's cool to be in this blue ocean space. It's a blue ocean, and you can dominate or help or assist any sector that you want to be part of, or connect with everybody and bring the knowledge together. Like there's all kinds of areas to help and grow and be part of this, whether you're just the business case or you want to like develop like IP, like intellectual property, or like, and then we have like I just mentioned, working with academia. I have another friend working on his PhD in affordable 3D housing at Liberty University. He's like one of the founders, and like that kind of partnership, like public, private, academia, all that kind of stuff. That's where we're really going to go and grow, and it's amazing to be part of.
That it is super cool. And so where in like the next 5 years, like where does this go? Like what's 24 look like? What's 25 look like? And I mean, they don't have millions of homes or thousands, hundreds of homes even printed yet, but I don't know if there's a goal each year, like 23 by the end of 24, kind of like the productions of cars, but like, do they want a certain number of like homes printed off or
I mean, you say they, like we do.
Well,
the
yeah.
The government does.
Right. Like is there goals around this, like as a whole industry?
I mean, we want to. No, that's actually a good question, Mark. I don't know if they're just. I mean, it's because it's the beginning of the industry. They're just starting to form like trade groups and building associations around it.
Okay.
And even some of the code, like we didn't even talk about that, which we'll just truncate it just to keep the discussion kind of.
We don't care about codes.
Yeah. AC 509 is kind of like the standard code, which essentially is CMU block kind of code. That's kind of the go-to code that people have relied on. And that's, we didn't even talk about like, local building jurisdiction, code approval, this, that, and the other. But that's a big piece, but I think we can easily work through it by referencing some existing codes. But so assuming that some of the code issues and some of the reluctance in some of these communities can be overcome, then I think there's definitely a path for, as the material properties improve, or people figure out how to modify the material, essentially concrete, add the right additives, the right tent, the right sequence, for developers. Like everyone has a deep, big part to play. And when all those things mature over the next couple of years, I think we will see hundreds of homes being made in whole or in part with 3D concrete printing. And I think it's one solution of many out. One of the solutions out there. And it will take a suite of solutions. So I'm not like, 3D concrete printing until I die, and that's the only way to do it. No, it's boxable, it's modular, it's tip up, it's extruded panels. And I see, in certain areas, that leading. I see like Florida, like you mentioned, we talked about.
Yeah.
I see California and Colorado, more concrete, building the wall out of concrete than less. I see like more, other, like a environment like Minnesota or North Dakota using panelized construction, good insulation, and of course, you can 3D print the wall and you can actually fill it up with insulation anyway. We didn't talk about that, but that too. But anyway, so there's lots of things we didn't talk about, but again, just to keep the conversation, at some level of understanding, so we don't get lost in the weeds on the details. Certain areas will lead with certain benefits and technologies and in local supply chain, issues. So maybe I can't get wood. Maybe wood is just like not really available. It's super expensive. So then maybe that will lead to more 3D concrete printing of the walls. Maybe in other areas where wood is not that expensive, maybe it's in Montana and it makes a lot of sense. And like and maybe I just do the foundation. What if I had a company and the technology was such that I could zip in there and get a foundation? I didn't need to pull forms and do all this stuff. I just printed the forms. I had a nice pad or a nice site ready to go. I rolled in with my printer, whether the gantry crane or the crawler with the robotic arm, and I 3D print the one guy or 2 guys do all the work in a day and I'm done, and they're maybe younger guys and they don't like hard work or they don't like doing forms and they haven't been doing concrete all their lives, but they're good at the technology. So we're rethinking the labor shortage. We're thinking how to do it. We're thinking the speed at which it gets done. Like there's so many if the word paradigmatic shift, if that's a word, all those kinds of things will shift how we do these things.
We use laser screeds, we use pump trucks, there's so much technology even in the concrete industry, which wasn't even, I think about like 10 years ago, we didn't use some of this stuff today. I know laser screeds have been around that long, so have pump trucks, but I think where this advances in the next 10 years, it's going to be a game changer. Like I said, I think your markets like Florida, where that really stands out, and Colorado, your more regulated states with how things have to be built. And just the quality of like concrete's a long time. Like if you pour something out of concrete, it's going to be there a while. Yeah. Like it's not even like conventional lumber and cheap siding. It's
if you finish it right and you pour it right.
Right.
And I just reached out to a guy. Actually, I know we kicked off the combo about a few things about LinkedIn or social media. I reached out to a guy who made a comment on someone else's 3D concrete printing project. And he asked about like, well, what's your finish? What's your finish going to be? And then I looked at his profile, and he specializes in 3D concrete or concrete treatment. So like, something's kind of been I've been wondering about, like water ingression and like final finish. Like let's just say you don't trawl it, at the time. How can you make sure it's very, very water resistant? Obviously, I don't want that water, going into some wall cavity. So like he looked like his company specializes in concrete coatings. Yeah. So again, like high quality, high value, fast, efficient, like that. So if I 3D print my wall, for example, outside or inside, and I don't maybe surface trawl it, then I spray some high, permeability or low permeability coating on it, then it's done. Then I don't have to worry about water ingression, seeping into the building. So that kind of stuff is like, you just see stuff. You're just like, oh, like that's a solution that we hadn't really thought about, or we haven't really addressed, or no one has really talked about. So there's somebody out there with a technology or an application or something like that just hasn't been put together. So there's all these pieces on the shelf out there across the world. Okay. It's waiting for people to like put it all together and do something unique.
Wow.
That's how I see it.
Anyway. This is going to be so. We'll have another conversation, and maybe hopefully not 5 years. But I honestly see this taking off. I've heard a lot about it, but I haven't seen. You just don't see it. Right. So how is your company? What is your company offering as a service today? What you guys are in?
Yeah. So we're kicking it off with a actual project. Where we are leading the kind of the training and kind of a consulting group. Okay. But also for this first project or first couple of projects, also part of the team will be hands-on. So we're building credibility. We are doing the project ourselves. We're facilitating the lease or the purchase of the machine. We're not going to purchase it within the company itself, but we will like kind of co-lead, co-lease, and some other, the business details are still to be worked out. Yep. But we see definitely we are the leaders just because of our knowledge and our background of the core team. We are leading that part of the process, which many people don't have any knowledge about it at all. So it's simply just leveraging our intellectual capital right now. Gotcha. And, putting that to work, in conjunction with, great machine manufacturers with a interesting project. It's like a small home project for, kind of for those in need. Really, it's kind of affordable housing, for under 1,000 square foot homes. So it's a perfect project with a great manufacturer, with a good team, and it just kind of comes together. And we see ourselves scaling and growing, beyond this to, working with developers. And as we grow, as technology grows, as the knowledge base grows, we see leveraging that knowledge, sharing the knowledge, and helping developers around the country apply it with this and other kinds of technology for the right application in the right area with great design, of course. Wow. So you basically would set up a contractor like myself with all the equipment and stuff I need. That's what I see right now. And you're my support. Basically. My support team. Yeah. I like that, man. That's it's in a growing space, so that's always a fun space to be in. Yeah. And it's like so cutting edge. Like I remember when those 3D printers came out, I was like, what? Yeah. It's like, I was like, what do you mean it lays little beads? And it's like, you can YouTube some of this 3D printing. Even in the concrete printer, you can YouTube plenty of stuff that they've printed out. It's honestly pretty crazy. And
you can just see the efficiencies that are going to be in the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got a couple questions for you. I know we were buddies on LinkedIn, and that's how we met.
Yes.
So guys, power of branding too. I'd like to make sure that you guys are promoting your own personal brand, because it'll be something that changes your life just from this one podcast. Maybe Johnny meets another person in the 3D printing space, or myself, just giving you guys some value. Guys, branding is a true piece. Johnny, I know you can help vouch for some of that.
Yeah.
And we're building up on LinkedIn, so make sure you go follow Johnny Nelson there, if you haven't heard of him. But I got a couple juicy questions for you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that shout out, and just kind of adding to your encouragement for people to use. It's been out there. We know, like, building a personal brand has been out there for a while, and a lot of people have said it. It's becoming more relevant. People are hungry for it, and there's real value to be created by connecting with, people like myself or Marc that are doing something that's very, very close or resonates what you're doing, what your passion is, and that's where it becomes very exciting here. There's lots of it's getting more noisy out there, but also that just indicates that there's more people on the space with more unique traits that you can take advantage of, but you got to know how to do it, and how to punch through the noise yourself if you're actually offering, and also actually if you're looking for it, how to look through the noise and find exactly what you need out there. So there's good and bad to it, but I see it more on the good side, because there's so many people offering such unique specialties and knowledge domains that you can find really quickly, get a problem that you have solved very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's like your personal brand too, and you are an expertise of 3D printing, and your goal is to make affordable housing. I don't really care about your company.
Yeah.
I honestly don't care what the company name. I just care about Johnny Nelson, and that's just how branding has changed nowadays. Marketing has changed and evolved so much. Like, people used to advertise their companies, and if you were to go put up brochures online or whatever and hand them out, like, no one cares.
Yeah, like, what's your business? Versus like, what's the brand? Like, what's the person? You're like, oh, that person, whoever they're around, that's the go-to person for this domain of information or knowledge, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Your visibility almost beats your ability today. Like, it's just it's a hard thing to say, but that's how branding works. So make sure you're building your brand as well. Okay, couple questions here. Dun dun dun.
Hit me up.
I don't have any music yet. Jen hasn't implemented that. Jen, maybe we need music. But so we're in 5 years, maybe a personal business level. Where do you envision yourself?
We want to get to a $500 million, either be part of it or lead development, and that we want to be probably at least maybe 10,000 homes built. So that's a couple of just kind of high level goals, and we want to impact millions of people around the world. So our original, one of our founders was like, we want to impact 1 billion people. I'm like, that's a big number. So I've been saying hundreds of millions. We're kind of like, it's one of those things like, is it billions? Is it hundreds of millions? But it's the demand, the need is worldwide. We see the opportunity to impact worldwide, and that's we want to be at least 500 million. Being part of $500 million worth of projects that we are, have equity, at the very least have equity in.
Wow, that's awesome, man. And it's going to grow a lot in 5 years. You got a lot going on.
Yes.
My last question to you would be, what does unfollow the herd mean to you?
I like that, man. I like that. So, being from Alaska, you see actually a lot of herd, you see vast, herds of elk and caribou. Actually, really caribou, some elk, but mainly caribou. So talk about not following the herd or unfollowing the herd, and they go down a certain path, and there's comfort, but also there's if you when you just follow that mentality, you stay the same path, the same course, and nothing changes. So these herds have been doing that for a long time. So I think, in the transitioning from caribou to people, I think there's real value in following a new path. And that's what probably motivates me the most is you see all these other career professionals doing what they've done for a long time, following the same path, the same migratory pattern, eating in the same area. Like, what? Why is this accepted? Why do we have to do that? We have, we're not animals. We have human brains, human spirits. We're called to higher things, and that's what really motivates me is to follow that unique path that I think God has set for us, and create the value that we're destined to do.
Oh man, that's awesome. Awesome answer. Yeah. Well, if you guys want to follow someone new in the 3D printing space, also a genius in the real estate space, another reason I followed him in LinkedIn, make sure you go follow Johnny Nelson. Guys, he's building a $500 million, $500 million company here in the next 5 years. Follow him. He does awesome things. Appreciate you having me on, Johnny.
Hey, thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, buddy.